And our next sensor is going to be not necessarily a sensor. I know it's grouped in with the sensor bags. But what we're going to be doing with this is on our PCB board, we will be powering our motors, which we're not going to have that done on this phase. So that's something we will do later for you guys. But we were going to have to get power from our batteries to our PCB board. And so these connections right here, which you'll see later when we do the system aspect, these are battery terminal connectors, and these will plug into our batteries. So these have already been pre-prepared for you, but we will plug into our PCB boards these what are called banana jacks. And so these are pretty simple to put together, and they actually don't need the soldering iron, so we don't need that for this lesson plan. But what we're going to do is we're going to take out this bag that says 2 banana male at the top, and there shouldn't be much in here. You should have 2 banana plugs, 2 wires that are joined together. So you want to keep them joined together the best you can. They've already been split a little bit. They don't need to be split very much. And you need to pull out your little screwdriver. So what we're going to do first is we're going to unscrew these. And let's start with this one. This will be a little easier, hopefully. And I'm having some trouble with this. There you go. So I was unscrewing the wrong way. So they're actually going to push out this way. So you're actually going to push as you screw. Push the prong end and then screw this out. And you have like that. And these are pretty simple to put together. What you'll see is these 2 little screws that are, one's right here and one's on the back side. And all we're going to do is we're going to, I didn't want to take it out all the way, but what you want to do is you want to unscrew it by going counterclockwise. And if you do accidentally unscrew it too much, you do not want to lose this piece. Now, there may be 1 or 2 that only have one of these screws, and that's okay. If you don't have both screws, that's fine. But if your screw pops out, you're going to want to look at your end, and there's one end that has a piece for your screwdriver to fit in, and then there's just a flat end with no screwdriver indentation. So you want to put your flat end first, and then just barely screw it clockwise. And what we're going to do first is we're going to unscrew them to the point where they're barely held in. So to unscrew, we're going to go counterclockwise. And then we're going to take our wire, and we're basically just going to plug that in there. And see how I have the insulation is not quite in there? What I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to cut this down just a little bit. So I'll take my wire snippers. Make sure you're wearing your safety glasses for this. And I'm going to cut down that copper a little bit. And then I'm going to plug that back in. And by doing that, now my insulation's also inside. And so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my screwdriver and I'm going to screw in the screw that's to the furthest outside part first. So the one that's closest to the insulation of the wire. And you're just going to screw that in as far as you possibly can. And then once it gets tight, you're going to go ahead and screw your other side in as well. And you're going to want to screw these in as tight as they go. And basically what these screws are doing is they're latching on to the metal and the insulation. They're going to hold the wire in place so it doesn't pop out. And if that happens, that means you screwed too far. So bear with me, this is the first time I'm doing this as well. So you're going to have the same learning curve. You want to make sure that when you're doing this, you are working in an area where you're not going to lose these screws. So I have a big table where if these screws pop out, I can easily find them. Okay, so they're both screwed in just a little bit. I'm going to start out with my red wire, though it doesn't really matter which one I do first. I'm going to jam that wire into place. And then as it's jammed into place, I'm going to start screwing in the screw that's closest to the outside. Careful not to go too far. So I can tell it's good enough because I'm pulling and tugging on that wire just barely and it's not going anywhere. So now I'm going to go ahead and screw this other one in. Once again, not too far, so that way they don't pop out. And when you're screwing it in, you're going clockwise. And got that wire in there, so we're good to go. So now I'm going to take the cap, and you can kind of see on one side where it looks like it's sort of threaded, and on the other side it's just kind of wider. You're going to take the wider side that's not threaded and place it in first. And you're going to push it down, and then after you push it down, then you're going to, if it's hard to push down, that means your screws need to be screwed in just a little bit further. So that's the case with mine. It's a little challenging to push down. So I'm going to screw my screws in just a tiny bit further, not too far, so that way they pop out. And if you only have one screw, what you can do is you can just do this outside one. That's probably your best one to do, but you really want to make sure you jam your wire in all the way. Or if you happen to lose your screw. So I'm going to pull or push it in place, and then I'm just going to twist this until I catch the threads, and I'm going to hold my metal piece and then twist this going in a counterclockwise direction and twist it in place. And now if I do this, I'm pulling and holding the red piece in place, and I'm pulling this. It doesn't go anywhere, so that's good. And notice how I did the red one on the red wire. I'm just going to pull this just a little bit further apart. And now we're going to do the black one on the black wire. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut this a little bit shorter. I'm going to unscrew my screws. Not all the way, but just to where I know I can fit the wire in there. I'm going to push my wire in and then jam it in there a little bit further just to make sure it's good. And all we're doing with that wire is it's just making contact to this whole shell. If it's making contact to any part of this, it's all going to be conductive and we're going to be able to carry our signal through. So now I'm going to do the outside one first. And notice how I screwed most of it in, but then it's still sliding out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unscrew that one now. I'm going to jam this back in there a little bit harder. And then I'm going to screw that one again. Alright, so this one's going to give me a little bit of trouble. And the reason why, as you can see, when the red and black was pulled apart, a little bit of the black insulation stuck to the red. And so this black wire now is just going to be a little bit skinnier, which means it's going to be harder to jam in there and having the screws lock it into place. So that's fine. What we're going to do is we're going to just screw this one. I unscrewed a little bit, pushed it back. I'm screwing it back in a little bit. And before I try a pull test, I'm just going to go ahead and screw the other side in as well. And we're still having issues. So what I'm going to do now is notice how that wire got all jumbled up. It's probably because I need to cut it just a little bit shorter. So I'm retwisting it, getting it tight again, cutting a little bit more of that excess off. I'm going to unscrew these again. And I'm glad I'm having these issues. You can kind of see this is never going to be super straightforward and easy. Sometimes it's going to take a little bit of patience. All right, pushing that back through, jamming it in there a little bit. We're going to do the bottom one first. All right, now I'm doing a little bit of pull test. I'm not pulling too hard, but I'm pulling it and it's staying in place. That's good. So let me go ahead and do the other side now. Gonna screw it in most of the way, but not all the way because I don't want it to pop out. And this looks pretty good. Doing a little pull test, it looks like it's in place. So now I'm going to put the fat end on that's not threaded first. I'm going to push that all the way through, and then I'm going to twist this counterclockwise to lock in place. And notice how if I can push it out, it's not actually locked in place, so I'm going to keep twisting. And this is just going to take some patience and keep going so you can find the teeth. And there you go. Now I'm pushing it, it's locked. There we go. So now these two ends with these yellow terminations, those will plug into the battery, and these will plug into our PCB board, and that's what's going to give us some power on the board. So thank you.